Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is the Bad News Network. The city of Pittsburgh is planning on putting a ban on assault weapons in, which they define as any rifle that has a pistol grip, a folding stock, or any ability to hold a magazine. Separately, they're planning on banning any weapon that has a magazine of over 10 rounds. There is a problem with this law, however. It's completely illegal. In addition to the constitutional questions involved in banning a weapon that is popular and in use, there's also a state statute that says cities or municipalities cannot amend firearms laws in any way, shape, or form. Erica Strasburger, a member of the city council, is nonplussed. She went on record saying she's completely ready to take the state to court. She also went on record and said this is absolutely not an overreaction to the Tree of Life massacre that occurred earlier this year, but instead is a means of fighting the suicide epidemic as well as the decades and decades of gun deaths in Pittsburgh. Totes believable. In other news, rifles of all kinds account for only 3.4% of all gun violence, and suicides are almost exclusively the province of handguns, based on the sheer fact that barrels are long and it's very hard to do this. In other remove rights just in time for the holidays news, New Jersey has started a ban on all magazines over 10 rounds. Not only will you no longer be able to buy these magazines, but if you don't turn the ones you currently have in over the next 180 days, congratulations, you're a felon. That includes police officers. As such, most officers will no longer be able to carry their service weapons home, and if they really want to, they're going to have to remove their normal magazines and replace them with low-capacity magazines. Forget just once and get pulled over? You, officer, are now a felon. Right now, a lot of people are rightfully talking about how the war on drugs has created felons out of otherwise productive members of society. The war on alcohol, which resulted from prohibition, did the very same thing while simultaneously empowering an underground empire the likes of which we had never seen before, led by people like Al Capone. But I'm sure that the upcoming war on firearms is going to be totally different, and it's going to work out exactly like progressives expect, with a utopian society and no more death. It's been a bad week for President Trump. Let's start with charity. The Donald J. Trump Foundation has agreed to dissolve under judicial supervision. The foundation is currently being sued by the New York State Attorney General. The lawsuit specifies violating campaign finance laws as well as abusing tax-exempt status. I know I speak for everyone when I say, I am shocked. Earlier this week, the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, stated that President Trump had never signed a letter of intent to create a Trump Tower in Moscow. 4 minutes later, CNN produced a document signed October 28, 2015, from the president stating that he was going to make a Trump Tower in Moscow. Giuliani followed up with, well, it doesn't matter if he signed it or not, the project was scrapped. In other news, a study released this week by the Washington Post showed that fewer than 3 in 10 Americans, including fewer than 4 in 10 Republicans, believe that President Trump tells the truth. Many people, the study claims, believe that the president creates news sometimes just to divert from events that are happening elsewhere. It's an interesting theory. President Trump announced this week that we've defeated ISIS in Syria and that we will be pulling out immediately. When asked for comment, one Kurdish leader replied, "No, I didn't hear about this. I was too busy fighting ISIS, which, by the way, is totes still here. Is the US really gonna f*** us again?" To which the US replied, "Seriously, just trust us." In the final Trump news of the week, the president appears poised to do battle with Letitia James, the new Attorney General from the state of New York. Many people are trying to paint this as a battle between good and evil. Trump was the spoiled rich kid from Queens who was a millionaire at age 8, and James was the poor girl from the Bronx who saw a woman standing there in a business suit and said, I want to be like her, and fought her way through gender barriers and race barriers to become one of the most powerful women in New York. But James has a nasty habit of ignoring the law and frequently bringing cases to trial with no standing. In particular, she likes to target landlords that she doesn't like, as well as Republican political opponents. Her reputation as a bulldog comes far less from success in the courtroom and far more from stirring the pot for political and news attention. In this way, she and the president have a lot in common. They are both great partisan marketers that can easily craft a message that will move the public in their direction. BNN gives their future relationship a 4.5 out of 5 on the dumpster fire scale. In military news, Nicholas Slatton, formerly of Blackwater, was finally found guilty of first-degree murder in the slayings of 31 civilians in Nisour Square, Baghdad on September 16, 2007. This ends a long and arduous process that occurred over 10 years and 3 trials, that hit a nerve internationally and made Americans really think about what is the role of private contractors in war. But when we look at Slatton's face and we think about this moment and all of the choices he had to make, really the only thing that comes to mind is...
Look at the size of that boy's head. Shh. I'm not kidding, it's like an orange on a toothpick.
Shh, you're gonna give the boy a complex.
Well, that's a huge noggin. It's a virtual planetoid. Has its own weather system.
In a story laced with controversy, Special Forces Major Matthew Goldstein has been charged with the Army for the murder of a Taliban bomb maker. Unlike other controversies of a similar nature, this story is mired in gray. Goldstein captured a bomb maker that admitted to creating the bomb that killed 2 Marines under his command a week earlier. The bomb maker was captured after a tip-off from the local tribal leader. When he was captured, however, he had none of the bomb-making materials with him, and there was not enough evidence to hold him indefinitely. As such, the Army had to let him go. Knowing that if the man returned to town, he would likely kill the tribal leader and his family, he made the decision to follow him and then kill him. Originally, he buried the body, but later came back for the body with a soldier under his command and burned the body on base. He admitted to the killing on a CIA polygraph when he was applying to that agency and has admitted to the killing many times since, including in an interview with Fox News. Many have argued that Goldstein's actions are a direct violation of the Geneva Convention and that he should be tried as a war criminal. Others have argued that the bomb maker was an evil man that had already taken U.S. lives and was about to take the lives of U.S. allies, and to not kill him would have been immoral. Americans, for their part, are torn on whether or not this was the right decision. President Trump has hinted that if Goldstein is found guilty of murder, he may very well pardon him. 12 members of Antifa are facing felony assault charges this week after jumping 2 Marines they believed were Proud Boys associated with white supremacy. When one Marine, under the deluge of kicks and punches from the mob, shouted out that he was Mexican, the Antifa mob quickly changed course from calling them Proud Boys and mocking their white supremacy to calling him a wetback, as well as other Mexican racial slurs. So for clarity, 2 non-racist Marines got jumped by a mob of people fighting against racism, who, when they realized one member of the Marines actually came from another race, became racist. This just goes to show you that mobs are really stupid. Regardless, we here at BNN are happy that both Marines survived the incident and are healing up nicely, and we hope that you have a great holiday. We'd also like to point out that while 2 versus 12 are really crappy odds, we believe strongly that 2 Army guys would have done a lot better. MacP greater than McMaps, yo. And with that, we all hope that you enjoy an incredible Christmas with your families. We really appreciate those of you serving overseas right now. We know what it feels like to not be home during this time of year, and we want to thank you for standing on that wall so that the rest of us can eat a lot of food, get drunk, argue with family, and wake up with a hangover from too much eggnog, which, let's face it, isn't even that good anyway, so why did we drink it in the first place? We also want to remind all of you out there that are feeling particularly stressed or lonely this time of year that there are people out there that do care, including us. If you do need help, please call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. You can also drop me or anyone else at Ranger Up a message anytime you want, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. But trust me, tough times come and go, tough people stay. We want you guys to stay. It's worth sticking around if for no other reason to figure out what the hell Jack Mandeville is going to do next. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and Merry Christmas! So Mattis quit. And the president said he quit because he's tired and he wants to retire after many years of service, but I think it was pretty clear from Mattis's letter why he's quitting. He's quitting because he thinks the president is a jackass who treats our allies like crap. So, here's to that. Now, I'm not saying that we should be in indefinite war. In fact, I've spoken many times about the fact that Congress needs to step up and actually declare war if we're going to be in war. But once you kick off one of these things and you engage allies, the Kurds, and you put yourself between a conflict, there is a right way and a wrong way of doing things. And probably the right way is not to take a private call from President Erdogan of Turkey, where Erdogan basically says, you know, you better get out of Syria, as if, like, that motherfucker has a leg to stand on. So, in the same conversation that Erdogan tells Trump that he needs to get out of Syria, he also lets him know that he's essentially going to wipe out, you know, the remainder of the Syrian resistance, as well as all of the Kurdish freedom fighters. And we're going to bail on these people. We're going to bail on people that have fought alongside us against ISIS forever, who are our staunchest allies in the region, and we are going to put their lives in the hands of not only Syria, which obviously has problems with them, but Vladimir Putin, and then Erdogan, who, you know, the Turkey of right now is not the Turkey of 10 years ago. Turkey has jailed more journalists than China. In Turkey, Kurds are barely allowed to vote. It's almost impossible for a Kurd to run for office. And this guy has straight up run the Islamo-fascist playbook, and he plans on committing a genocide against these Kurds. You know, he's teeing up, you know, Armenia too. And no one in the States cares, because we're just kind of falling back on this, well, it's not really our problem, even though we had a huge hand in creating this problem. And we didn't make a strategic decision. The president had a phone call with the Turkish president, and then without talking to DOD, the State Department, Congress, national security advisors, he just said, you know what? We're leaving Syria, and we're going to pull out half of the troops from Afghanistan without any plan. And, you know, when we talk about electing people that are like us, or, you know, that do things differently, like, I'm cool with some of that, but, like, you know, in general terms, people that go with their gut are wrong. And there is a time and a place where you should be listening to experts and making an intelligent decision versus shooting from the hip when you're talking about, you know, potential genocide, the destabilization of a region, turning the Middle East over essentially to Russia as the new hegemon. And it's impossible to look at any of that as like a great fucking idea. You know, you have a situation that's so bad that you have a guy that has devoted his entire life to serving in the military, and then was elevated to what I have to think is his dream job as Secretary of Defense, after less than 2 years of serving with this administration, has said, you know what, screw it, it's not worth it. Either because he thinks that what is happening is so wrong that he doesn't want to be affiliated with it, or he thinks that his counsel is not being heard to such an extent that his service to the nation and the Constitution is no longer worthwhile, or both. And that kind of sucks. And with that, Merry Christmas.